Welcome, everybody. Nice to have you here. Interesting format with the tables that you sit like sometimes. But we can make this interactive, so I think that's maybe good. Can I see, for who of you is it first time at a DrupalCon? All right, good. I have another question. Are there any native Spanish speakers here? Yes. Native German speakers? Okay, me. All right. What else? I see Asian people. Like what more language do we have here? Korean. Cantonese. Okay. You'll see why I asked this question in a second, because I could have prepared something for you, but I only prepared for the Germans and the Spanish. But we are getting started. So the title of the session is AI with Drupal. Yeah. So I'm going to show you lots of AI stuff, what you can do with Drupal. The original subtitle was using LLM technology is easy, but how do we build useful applications? I guess you're here about learning how to build useful applications. I changed the title up a bit because like what I'm going to tell you is just, it has outgrown. It's not only about large language models anymore. It's just about much more. So therefore, like maybe that would be a better subtitle for the session, but everything that you read in the session description that might be the reason why you're here is still in there, just more. So I've set some goals for this presentation for myself that I want to share with you, so you know exactly where we're getting at. And I want to show you what you can do with AI in Drupal today. Like just show you what you can turn on and just use, and that will help you right away. Then I want to make sure that everybody in here, because the level of understanding, like what you can do with AI is probably quite different. Yeah, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same level and we understand what's going on behind the scenes, so that when you make choices like what you want to use, that they're actually educated choices. And then I want to provide an outlook where I think, or where we as a company think that AI is going. And I want to provide some recommendations for you, like how you should maybe use this for yourself and your organizations. Let me introduce myself. I'm Christoph. I have a background in computer science, so I'm not a doctor. I cannot fix your back, but I can answer computer questions. And I've been doing this for quite some time. And yeah, you can find me on social media under Brighter. I'm one of the co-founders of 1x Internet, and there I'm leading R&D. And that's why I'm talking about these types of topics frequently at conferences. 1x Internet, we are full-service digital agencies, so we cover the full spectrum from conception to user experience design, development, where we mainly use Drupal and React, and then of course web tracking and optimization, and hosting, maintenance, and support services. So we do it all. And we're a team of 85 people. We're headquartered in Frankfurt, Germany. That's where I'm from. Then we have offices in Berlin and in Spain and Iceland, where we also have teams. And yeah, so we come from very many different places. We speak 18 languages in our company. Our main language is broken English, we call it. So you'll spot some mistakes that I make. And we are more than 10 years old, so we've been around for quite some time. And we've done a lot of Drupal. So I've just put some logos here. I tried to find ones that you know. And so Jägermeister, I guess you know. And I don't know if Maggi is a thing here. Yeah, so. And Unity, we used to do a lot for Unity. They're not doing so much Drupal anymore, I think. And some universities. Yeah, so we've been doing this for quite some time. So for today's agenda, I've structured it in 3 parts. It's first, let's talk about how AI helps you with content creation. Yeah, but then let's turn it around. Let's look at content consumption. How do you actually consume content today? Yeah, that's the flip side of it. And then we just talk about AI strategies that you could implement, or what you could use, or what you could think of, like where this is going and what you would want to do. Let's start with disruption of content creation. Question: any ones of you here working for marketing agencies? So like with photo shootings and stuff like that? And video and staff and actors, and come back on the next day and it's raining, you can't do it, and so forth. Yeah, so like this is changing dramatically. Like if you're not exposed to, so we work a lot with marketing agencies. If you're not exposed to that, like that's crazy what's going on there. Like how like the workflows are changing. And for example, if you were just going to do like a piece on DrupalCon and you just had like only 1 or 2 photos of trees and you just needed more, you can just generate them. Yeah, I mean, this is just, you can just generate the photo set. If you have missing photos, you need different, different interactions and stuff. Yeah, so you can just, like, I mean, this is crazy. You don't have to go and reshoot. I mean, I remember this like 10 years ago. This was like a thing, and like this is just crazy changing. But what you need to be aware of, like, I mean, generation is just not perfect. Let's take this one here, for example. There are few too many Dreeses there in the background. And check out the Dries in the lower left corner. He's seeing something scary behind the Dries who's talking. Yeah, so I mean, so like when you generate stuff, mistakes happen. You've read about this a lot. We'll go into some detail about this in a minute. And but that's what's possible today, and that's affecting content creation like crazy. I have another one for you that's actually nice. Check this one out.
Hello Barcelona. Good to see you all. It's been a while, huh? Last time here was DrupalCon Lille. So yeah, I'm going to be here giving my traditional State of Drupal keynote. Y tenemos mucho de qué hablar, así que empecemos. Así que, algunos de ustedes podrían recordar DrupalCon Portland. No todos ustedes estuvieron en DrupalCon Portland. Aber wir haben bei DrupalCon Portland wirklich etwas Großes angekündigt. Richtig? Wir haben tatsächlich.
Okay, so you don't understand this because it's German, but it's just impressive. You can just you can have one video take of a person speaking, and you can just make that Spanish, German as we saw. You can make that Korean or Cantonese if you wanted to. I didn't think about this before. Otherwise, I would have prepared that. And that is just amazing. Like what you can do, how you can localize your content, and you don't have to do it again. Yeah, so this is pretty amazing. Okay, so what we're looking at content generation at scale. Yeah, so 50% of marketeers, they use AI-powered tools. Probably you do too, in their daily workflows, in their daily lives. Yeah, and they predict that 70% of content on the common platforms where you consume will be AI generated. I mean, it's kind of plausible. I mean, look at the stuff that you see on YouTube, TikTok. How fast that's moving. So I think that's highly likely. And if you now look at content generation at scale, that can only be at scale because there's cost reduction at scale too. Because same amount of people or fewer people can generate more content, so there's cost reduction at work. And so 70% of business report this. That's not just for content generation, now just in general, that using AI tools just increases their efficiency dramatically. And this leads to, especially that's true in for example, marketing services, but it's everywhere. They predict that 85 million jobs might get replaced, but they also think that 97 million jobs will be created. So the stats, I didn't make them up. Like, they're from all kinds of sources. The best one I could find for you to just cross-check if you wanted to was this blog post where the person nicely collected all these stats. Yeah, I think this is just bogus because it's moving so fast, so nobody can know. So whatever you read, you can trust it or not. But matter of the fact is, content generation moves much, much faster with much fewer resources, and that leads to that much more is created. Yeah, and that's the situation where we are. So what does that mean for us? We need better content management systems. So we're in a good spot. I mean, we are DrupalCon. This is what we do at the core, and so I think this is pretty nice spot to be in these crazy changing times. And because Drupal is the leading AI-powered open source CMS. You heard this in the keynote from Dries earlier. You heard this in the other AI talks probably if you were there. And there's just really much truth in it. I mean, everybody's trying it for sure. Yeah, but we are just really far ahead, and we open source. Yeah, so it means it's available for all of you, and it's available free of charge. So we'd actually have a major value proposition to go out with. So I think this is good for us. So before we continue, let's a little bit break down the AI black box. Yeah, and because then I will show you some stuff that you can already do in Drupal. But let's just break this down a bit before, and let's just get terminology straight. So when I say AI in this talk, I am talking about generative AI. There exist other forms of AI, so I mean AI that just generates something. Yeah, and when AI generates something, it has some learned patterns that it uses, whatever they might be, and it produces output. So stick something in, there comes a statistical application because it's nothing else than a statistical, very advanced application, and that takes your input, uses all the patterns it knows, and produces output. As simple as that. So if you now, for example, you think about a language model generates text. Yeah? So it just analyzes the patterns, and of your question, and use the patterns that it has learned, and just predicts the next word in a sentence. And using that, you can have answer questions, summarize text, and so forth. But it's text input, large language model, text output. Yeah. On the example of large language models, let's go one step deeper and say, how does this actually work? So because large language models, they're called large because they're trained on very many documents, literally extremely many. That's why they're so expensive to create. And they contain millions of parameters, that are these patterns that are then baked into this model. If you want to visualize it, you can think of it somehow like this, lots of documents going in, and these documents contain text, and text has intrinsic relationships, for example, semantics, so good morning, good day, good afternoon. Yeah, so depending on the context, there's a likelihood of this sentence appearing in this form, and that's exactly this hidden structure that becomes available when you just train a large language model on vast amounts of data, and that's what I'm trying here to show, that these documents, they have these intrinsic structures between them, and they just get surfaced, and these are then the patterns that the large language model uses when it produces text. Yeah, but it's just text in, model, text out. Same is for vision model generation. It's really the same. It's just trained on data. Again, patterns are just, recognized, and you put input in, that could be a text prompt, generate an image of this and that, and then based on the connection between this prompt and the patterns it knows of pixels, it can generate image output. And this is the same for video models too. Video models, they just, they know the how do you say, the temporal coherence between image frames. That's the transition between two frames. Yeah, so they just know, okay, if I see something like this, then most likely the next one will be something like that. Yeah, and then again, you have some input, whatever that might be, a text prompt or a video that you want to create a derivative of, or a lip sync. Yeah, and it just uses these patterns and just generates new video. So AI models, they predict outcome, and they just predict what's on the highest probability of being true. That's just what they do. So language models, they generate text, and it's not thinking, it's just generation. They just predict the next word in a sentence. That's what they do. And vision models, they just don't see. They identify patterns and put them together. And video models predict motion. Yeah? So let's go to the question, can AI think? Because that's what you read all the time, reasoning models, thinking models, and so forth. Let's just tape stack back and think that through. So AI, it doesn't think. It just predicts. It's a statistical model. Nothing else, but it feels like intelligence, and that's why when you see these crazy examples, you're like, whoa, he's smart, or she, or whatever, yeah? And, but it's just a prediction, And also, when you think of it, of reasoning, so why is this and that? It's just recognizing a pattern to just generate the answer, and that could be true. That's also how you have to use it. Yeah, when you just interact with a model, or you just generate whatever it is you're generating, like a blog post or something like this. Yeah, so it's not thinking, it's also not reasoning, and for sure it's not creative. Yeah, when you just make pictures, it's just a remix of existing pictures. Yeah, so it's not creating something new, even though for you it might look new because you don't know all the patterns that are in the model, but it's just not really creative. Yeah, and it's also not making decisions. If you have an agentic system, it just takes what's most probable of a sensible thing to do. Okay, keep that in mind. I have one more that actually came to me when I was making this this presentation. So, when you think back to in school, when you had to study for a difficult math test, there was essentially two ways how you could approach it. You could just memorize and just learn everything and practice, practice, practice. Or you could understand it, and once you've understood it, a lot harder, but then everything was easy afterwards. And AI is much like, memorization, yeah? Because it just has seen a lot, and based on what it has seen, just like some of us, might have done in math tests, just producing and just knowing how this works. All right. Enough for theory. There will be a bit more. Now let's look what you can do with Drupal today. So I've recorded this beforehand. and let's take a look. So what you see here is a pre-configured Drupal installation. Try Drupal, we call it. At our company, we use this for all our websites, so we never build it from scratch. We always start from something here, and whenever we just create new functionality and we build something that could be useful for others to reuse, then we put it in here. All right, so if you want to set up like an AI, so you have to put on an AI key. So we made this little thing here because it could be quite difficult to configure this if you just don't know exactly what you're doing. So here in this example, I've put an OpenAI key, and now I just start to create content. So in this example, I just want to create a blog post about, this very DrupalCon. So I'm using here something called page templates. That's a module we contributed. You can just use it. You see I'm showing the latest of the latest because in the upper right corner, like the notification is not fully shown. So here, just like put in some text to set this all up. All right, and now I use the first AI function. So here I have some demo text, I replace it, and I want to create a blog post from DrupalCon Atlanta, and I took beforehand all the text from the session overview page and converted it to Markdown, so I have a little bit less text, and told AI, in this case OpenAI, to just generate text based on this and summarize this and maybe spotlight on AI sessions, because I want to have like some detailed pages on this. Next, what I want to do, this is just ready. What you see here is just ready-made. That's why I'm showing it to you. So because you can use it for yourself too. Another one that's really handy and most obvious to use is, of course, like image alt text generation. So here now I'm adding a couple of pictures. They are from DrupalCon Barcelona. And you see when the text is generated, a group of 8 women standing together on stage. I mean, this is just pretty good. And if you know how accessibility works in screen readers, if you've tried that out, so these are just really good alt text that are being generated. So last one, picture of person listening to a session. Let's put in some image credits. So I actually forgot that in the first ones. All right. So once we have the pictures, we go back to the post. Now we can just like start adding these pictures in. I'm just doing this here. All right, so the module, what you see here in place, that just does this in-place editing. It's called front-end editing. You can just apply this to your website as well if you want to, because it just works with any fields or any entity in general. And then you can just like edit directly from the front end. So now we just generate some more text. So now I want to have short text of, now I took the detailed text from a presentation. And I said I want to have like a little bit longer text, 2 to 3 sentences. I limited it because I wanted to fit to the size of the text here. And again, you see like, you can really quickly just create this. Let's do one more here. Again, some text is from this presentation where we are in right now. So, no, actually it's not. No, that's from the one that was just previously. Okay, anyways, good. So what are we doing next? Now we are just optimizing. So what you can also do. So here, here, for example, there was some text that's bullet points, and you can have like some simple conversion, for example, bullet points to text. So I'm using here a feature that is also ready to use, where you just like change tones, and you can just make a new tone that's no bullet points, please. And then you just give a prompt and say, convert this to text. I created another one called past tense, convert to past tense, because it was returning me present tense. I could have set this in the first prompt, so then I wouldn't have had this, but just for illustration purposes, I changed this also with something ready-made. So if you install CK Editor AI functionality, you can have all these ready-made prompts, and you can use it all exactly how you want. So now I switched provider to Anthropic. So I did this here to illustrate. It works with any provider. So like the AI module functionality in Drupal, it lets you work with OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, whatever you want. There was a little glitch here. And what I'm doing now here, actually, let me get back here. This is actually an important one I want to show. So you see here that I'm using, go back here. So I'm using this tool. You saw it here that I clicked the, let's go a little back, Anthropic here, come on, and then I'll pause. So now another typical thing is that you just want to generate good page titles. I mean, this is just difficult if you have created some content, just making an engaging title, you know, for SEO purposes, for example. So that's why this is something that we are going to contribute now. You see this button there next to the title field, and that takes the page content, reads it through, and then just generates a series of titles. Yeah, and then you can pick one to insert it. And the same is here. We have a preview text field here, so which we use to just generate meta tags and, you know, and produce preview cards and so forth. And that's also like, you know, that's a typical summarization task. So we also added here like some AI button functionality. This you can't yet install because we haven't contributed it yet, but we will release it very soon, and because it's also a very obvious thing that you just most likely want to do. Okay, so making some final changes here. And then last thing I want you to show, yeah, you can of course also apply, you know, AI summarization, optimization buttons to meta tags. And the last one that's ready for you to install is page analysis. So there's an SEO module that you can install and apply to any page, sends the content to AI with quite an elaborate prompt, and it just gives you a really nice detailed summary back what you have on your page and what you could use. All right, so these are the ones. Can I go down? So these are the ones you can use today, yeah? And you don't have to take a picture at the end. There's a link to the presentation, and you can take that, but you can, of course, take as many pictures as you want. And to show you the modules that I use, so it's just AI core, AI external moderation. You have to actively turn it off if you don't want to have moderation, but you want to have it on. And then it's the AI seek editor integration. That's one module. AI logging is there. We didn't see it, but like it's good to install because then you see what you send to the model and what you get back. Then the AI SEO analyzer, yeah, and the AI image alt text, yeah. I made the AI helper bold. I mean, because that's the one where we assemble stuff before we just carve it out into modules and then contribute them. So that's the only one that's custom. So everything else, what you saw here, is just ready, available, and you can install this just on your pages today. All right, and you can also try it out. If you go to trydrupal.onexinternet.de, like not the latest is updated there, but it's like a trial. It's exactly the same as Drupal CMS. It is similar to Drupal CMS, just like much more advanced. And we are releasing all the AI functionality there. We do this for you to test, and also for us internally to test, because like our team, we reuse stuff that was already built instead of just doing it again, and that's why we have it. All right. One little note here. So it was very fast and it's very difficult to follow, but remember like how Dries, the generated picture from Dries, had like many Drieses in the background. And if you had read the text carefully that was generated, it didn't make so much sense. It was okay-ish, yeah? So it was good enough that you now think it was cool, but like if you really read it in detail, it's just not good enough. It's definitely not ready for a blog post to publish. So what you have to be ready for when you install it, there needs to be a human in the loop, because you will just have hallucinated facts, yeah, that sound really good, you know, the prediction of the next word in the sentence is good, but it just doesn't make any sense, yeah? So that you will definitely see, and when you'll see distorted images, we saw that in the example earlier, and logical inconsistencies for sure, yeah, with the past tense, present tense, for example, yeah, and just drop that wrong information, yeah? So you need to have a human in the loop. That's what you need to be aware of. All right, now let's turn this around. Now let's look from the other side. So if there's so much content out there and that is to be read, you know, we can also use AI to consume it better, yeah? And so let's check it out. In the past, I mean a few months ago, it was like this. If you wanted to know what the 40-40-20 rule of software development is, you would have to do something like this. You would just search it on Google, and then you would open the first link and you would read it. And it sounds kind of plausible, but you would open a second one to cross-check if the first one maybe was that right or not. And then, you know, that one's the scientific paper looks good, but you couldn't read it. Then you'd maybe go to the third one, and it says something similar, but yet again a little bit different. Yeah, so that's what you have to do today: collect all this information. And now people just don't do that anymore. You can just go to, you know, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever your favorite provider is, and you can ask that same question, and you just get the answer right away. Perfectly prepared. You know, he has read not only the 3 that are opened here, he's just read them all. Yeah, and he's just summarized it all and like brings that back perfectly for you. And you can even say, okay, theoretically sounds good. Now explain it, because I'm a project manager in the company or software developer or whatever it is that my context is in this moment, and say like, tell me an example. Like, what does that mean? How does that 40-40-20 rule, which is good by the way, you know, how does that apply, and like, what's the reasoning behind it or the logic behind it? The same will happen to your websites. People will just not go on your websites anymore and click around and then just like assemble the stuff in their heads. They just won't, yeah? And it will turn into conversational interfaces, and I will show this to you in a minute, what this will look like. But again, before we do it, let's just take a step back and look at the AI process so that we're really on the same page out of understanding like what happens like when you build some application like this. All right, let's start here. Remember, like AI is just simply input, statistical application, output. Now we want to customize it. What can we do? So the easiest way is we update or we change or alter the input side. You see here input, single input, a prompt. That could be something more elaborate. You know, something where you add some extra data, some instructions to it, and you just add some data, some real data that comes from somewhere that's helpful for this particular context, so that it's not only the statistical model that uses its own patterns to generate the answer. And this is what's typically referred to as RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Sounds super fancy, yeah? And it's a very simple thing, yeah? So you just ask a question, and then a retrieval task starts that finds matching documents in your database, yeah? And returns them alongside with some instructions and your questions to the large language model. It's as if saying, I want to know X, Y, Z, given that I have these 5 documents that explain X, Y, Z, please answer. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And what happens under the hood, you have a so-called vector database, yeah, where you stick all your data into. Could be, for example, your website. If you had a large website, all pages could go in there just like in a regular search, yeah. And then, you know, you ask a question, you find documents in the vector database that are similar to the question that could fit to the answer, turn them along. You know, large language models, they have large context windows. They can take this information and they produce an answer. The other thing that you could do is you could process data output, you know, input, statistical model, output, pass that to the next input, statistical model, output. That's what these automators are. I don't know if you were in the session this morning, so that was pretty much what's happening there, that you just chain a couple of these processes. Yeah, so you can influence the input side and you influence the output side, and that's it, what you can do when you build these applications. Yeah, let's a little bit, you know, clean up like all the naming here so that you just fully know when people say cool words, what they actually mean. Yeah, so the types of AI systems you can break down into 2. So it's either workflow systems, which means that you just really there's an example here, you know, like there's a really defined task with some steps, do this, with the result, do that, and then you're done. That would be workflow. It's really good to use, like easy to implement, comes natural to developers because it's kind of if-else, yeah? Just do AI calls in between. And the other one is AI agents, and the difference is only that they are a bit more adaptive. You know, they can maybe make some choices based on the question. They just maybe perform this action or that action. It's maybe an elaborate if-else, or maybe a switch, yeah, but like a bit more dynamic. So the more autonomous like these agents become, or these systems become, then you refer to them as agents, yeah. And for example, could be a chatbot that loads sometimes additional data based on user interaction, or maybe completes the assignment in just whatever ways, yeah. And these 2 are referred to as agentic systems. Yeah, so they all say agents, you know, and in the end it's just a workflow, or a workflow that's a bit more adaptive, and that would then be an agent, and both are agentic systems. Yeah? All right, so where are we today? So what you can do, and what most people are doing at the moment, and it's reasonably easy or complicated to do, is that you just modify data input and just make that smart, that you just help, you know, make a really good question. I mean, if you think about it, if you just use like a chatbot, like you get a bad answer if you ask a bad question. So then you just fine tune your question. You know what I mean? You change it. That's the same thing. Yeah. So you just develop ways that you just modify the data input, for example, by fetching data from a vector database, or you can fetch user data, for example, past orders in an e-commerce scenario, and you add this to the question that's being asked, for example, where is my order, yeah? And then an answer can be produced. All right, let's apply this to your website on the example here of DrupalCon Atlanta. So the scenario that we're trying to optimize is, finding AI sessions and the schedule. Yeah, so you could go here, see this overview. Okay, it doesn't say anything there. Go to the full program. Yeah, whoa, there's very much to read, but we have filters. So there's some tracks. Is there some AI track? No. Let's then search for AI, and whoa, but when I search for AI, I just get a lot of results. Probably all the words that have AI in them returned as a result, yeah? So AI is not a good filter or search term, so let's use artificial intelligence. Also not good, because only 2. There's definitely more. For example, this one is not there, and the ones that I attended, also not. So that doesn't work, yeah? So let's reset, and maybe use the regular browser search and make AI and space, and then we actually find everything that's there, yeah? So not so good. Let's see how this could be if you just built this with a Drupal chatbot. So again, here we see Drupal functionality at work with some customizations that we have been doing. And what I did here in the background, I just loaded the session program in. I just took all the sessions, loaded that in, and now you can tell me, what did I say? I think the question was the AI sessions. Now tell me about Brightat session, this one here where we currently are, what this is about. And then there was a similar session just earlier, so what's the difference? Do I have to go to them both? That's something that you would want to know when you select your sessions, yeah? So pretty good explanation that it's both about Drupal and AI, but like different focus. Like when is it exactly? Yeah, and you can answer these kind of questions. And say, okay, good, now I know my AI sessions, I have them under control, so what other session topics exist, yeah? Okay, there's more of the types. I was then more referring to the session tracks, yeah? What session tracks exist? Yips, there it is, like Drupal CMS, the starshot thing. I'm also interested in that one. Please tell me what these ones are. And boom, I get a nice list. So let's pause here for a second. Oops, oh, sorry, this is not how you pause it. Hang on, let's go to this where we were. I think it was around here. Stop. So you see here, now there are so many starshot questions, I don't even see them on screen anymore. They're scrolled out of the screen. Where I'm getting at, this is not good user experience, because now I have to scroll around. It's actually also pretty ugly. And so that can be better. So now what I'm showing you is what we are actively working on at the moment with our clients that have large data and that are just using conversational interfaces, because we just work on data presentation, because we are like here talking about how you consume this data. And if that was your scenario, you for sure need something that has more space of how you can see it. Yeah. So what I'm now doing, I'm changing the chatbot. I'm turning streaming off. Because I turned streaming off because you've seen this. It's called streaming, like that large language models. They stream results back. They don't give you like a response, and that's good because then you can just like complete this and like show this progress. Yeah, but of course, if you don't know how long the stream is, you don't know if you should open an overlay or not. So therefore, I'm turning this off. Kind of unsolved. Would be nice to have a streaming effect and overlay. And you see here, like the overlay starts from 1,000. So when there come more than 1,000 characters back, I put it in overlay. Yeah, so let him show this. Now the question I'm asking, make a personalized agenda for me with all AI sessions and the Drupal CMS sessions. So it does the same thing in the background, but now the difference is that when the response comes, come on, you can do it. The video runs already a little bit faster, so. Come on. There we are. Yeah, so now it's an overlay. This is not pretty. This is just really as good as we have it at the moment. Yeah, let's just here pause. And look here, and you can open it again. So it has this functionality. So what you see here on the front end is this deep chat client that also comes by default with the AI module. It's just in early stages. At the moment, you saw this maybe in the Dries node. Yeah, it can only make this small little window, so it can't even go full screen because it's just not supported by backend functionality. That's why we're contributing on at the moment. And now that's the first iteration on like to open overlays. But what you now have to visualize that actually where I think this is going, that this would be like landing pages, you know, so that should be with images if they are, you know, this would be going full screen, this would adapt itself, you know, and it would just, you know, do a lot more things, and it's all possible. It's coding now, yeah, so because we have the response and now we can do something with it to make it pretty, and yeah. Yeah, and then last one, always good to say thank you, and he would even tell me a Drupal joke. Oh, did you see the joke? Oh, sorry, the joke was, okay, sorry, when I click it stops. Okay, anyway, but you can watch the presentation. All right, so what I want to say and what I want to put into your head, so interact with you on, is like users expect to interact with your content. I mean, that's just coming. There's nothing we can do about it. And come on. And so they want personalized information tailored to their needs. You know, they want to say, like, what are the AI sessions? And what's the session tracks called again? Oh, yeah, Drupal CMS. AI and Drupal CMS, please compile that for me. Right? And they want this assembled from across your website. Doesn't matter if it's on one page or on many pages, you know, like go find this. Go find this in all the sources that are relevant in your organization or for your client or whatever use case you're facing. Yeah. And, you know, don't think they're not going to use the traditional keyword search anymore. You know, search for AI and find too much, search for artificial intelligence and find too little. Yeah, like they're not going to do this anymore. And like all elaborate UX features like, you know, long listing pages, you know, with filters and like mega menus that just drop down. I mean, they are barriers rather than, you know, cool functionality. So we have to completely rethink, like, in my opinion, like how we design information, you know, presentation. Yeah, and yeah, and user journeys across multiple pages go here, then click there, then click there, then click there. I think this is going to be gone. Yeah, and you will just have dropout rates. I mean, you're measuring this already. If you're just running any application and you're monitoring dropout, that's funnel analysis. That's what we're doing already. If you can't put this on one page immediately, then you'll have dropout rates. And yeah, users want instant, perfectly formatted language pages to whatever they can think of and in their preferred language. Yeah, so I think that's where it's going. All right. Let's wrap it up in strategies and outlook, and then we come to Q&A. First thing is, your data is important. Because first-party data, that's yours. Yeah, that's not yet remixed. Yeah, and that is what sets you apart from others, because that's yours. Yeah, if you have anything that is just, you know, your own personal, that's valuable. And AI models, they need high-quality data to make accurate predictions. Yeah, so your data needs to be governed really well. It needs to be complete. It needs to be correct. It needs to be up to date. Yeah, because otherwise AI can't produce any sensible text on it that doesn't feel like it's half wrong or it's missing something. And the CMS is the key component to this. Yeah, so we need to create systems, or you need to create systems, you know, and that are just really good at management and governance of first-party data. Yeah. So that's the thing that's coming big time towards us, I think. And yeah, and you have to make this data correct and easy to understand for external AI systems, because what you want, of course, like, you know, the ChatGPT bot to harvest your website and get that data into the model, that when they say who is the best in XYZ, that, you know, you are a candidate of, you know, what the large language model recommends. Yeah, so it needs to be there, accessible, easy to understand, easy for these models to produce. And the same is, of course, true for your internal systems. When you just make conversational interfaces to your data, it needs to be good, of high quality, well governed. Second thing that I think you should do right away, probably you are, I'm just not trying to say you aren't, I'm just saying, like, everybody should. Like, I mean, you should use this efficiency options that you just have. Yeah, I mean, you should leverage AI to stay competitive or be more competitive, be better than others. So you should probably start like implementing these tools in your workflows now, if you aren't, or help your clients implement these for the exact same reasons. Yeah, And when you start, you should start with simple tools. That's why I showed you in the beginning, text generation, image alt text, like maybe a simple button that just generates a text or reformats something, or maybe checks the brand tone on your website, something like this. Easy one-step things, that's where you should probably start, to get going. And you should make sure you keep a human in the loop, because that's actually a bit dangerous when you build this in and somebody that is actually thinking about it looks at it, you will get criticism. And you need to have the data governance right. I mean, Drupal is super for this. Think of workflows, think of user roles and permissions, think of like all the possibilities we have to just manage our content. So that's where you should think of. And then lastly, of course, think about data presentation. We're not there yet. Yes, not that everybody's doing it, but we are talking to all our clients about providing ways to allow them to talk to that their customers can talk to their data. And this actually also often referred to as hyper-personalization. And if you want to do this, again, the content needs to be accessible for AI, otherwise it just doesn't work. And then, you have to create your own interfaces and make them worthwhile for your customers or the clients of your customers. And and pretty much allow users to just talk to your data. This is again an opportunity, I think. If you start now, you will be well ahead because it's really new. And but I think that's where it's going. And that was it from my side. Thank you for your attention. Yes, please.
Thank you. This is very informative. Probably the most informative session I've been to so far.
Thank you.
I work for the government, and our challenge is how do we use AI in a way that protects the data of the constituents who are interacting with it, and also not use that data to train models that are publicly accessible, like ChatGPT. Are the technologies you use that you listed, are those the same ones that you use to make that conversational app? Because like you said, no one uses our search bar on our site to find things, and they're looking for a chatbot all the time. But we haven't found a solution that takes in all of our data and helps the customer.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I'll repeat it, not everything, but like the part that I understood. So the question is like, if you just create chatbot-like functionality, are we just using the same public models that were shown earlier in this presentation? And the question to this is yes. So it's like the same AI model family, module family that has support for different providers. In this case, for the chatbot, it was Anthropic that was used. So the data, the question that was sent together with the proprietary data, in this case, for the example, like the user schedule, was then sent to Anthropic to just generate the answer. So there was a follow-up question about data privacy. Do you want to leak that data out or not? How are you going to solve this? There's two ways. Of course, you don't know when you send data to a large language model. So the models themselves, they are just applications that take data in and send that out. So the model itself doesn't train based on it, but you just wouldn't know if maybe before the question goes in or after the data stored somewhere. I mean, I guess it is. If you just go on your Claude or your ChatGPT, it shows your past conversation, so it must be stored somewhere. Yeah. So at least that's for sure an issue if you don't want that to happen. So I guess in this case you would need to just fall back to some privately hosted models. For reference, for the chat. No, sorry, the chat was not on Anthropic. That was ChatGPT. I don't remember. But in any case, I used the small model, the smallest possible, because I put a lot of data in, and you pay based on the amount of data you send. So I used the cheapest possible for like generating this, and the results were okay. Yeah. So and that's important because if you just run models for yourself, private models, you just want to run a small model because it's much easier to run. So I guess that's what you then would have to do. Yeah.
So you talked about like the easiest way to get started, and I was going to kind of probe you and ask. So internally, have you guys kind of gone further down? And I'm curious, from the tools that you're using, are you guys switching your internal infrastructure to like a data lake house? Where you guys have like unstructured data that you guys are keeping track of, so that your internal tools, you have your own agentic tools that you can then use to find data patterns about your users that you can use to uncover for making your workflow more efficient?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's very up to date. So the question was like to us as an organization, if we just had a data lake, where just every data would go in to build like elaborate systems that could say like, what has Christoph ever said about this topic? And it would just look at the emails and look at Google Drive and whatever. Answer is no, we haven't. We are involved with one client in a project who is putting his data into a data lake, but they haven't built any applications on top of it. In my opinion, this is a super use case, and it would be so handy if if that information would be there. I think if you're just on Google or something, stuff like this will at some point just be there, probably very soon. And but I think from the perspective of building yourself and maybe applying this in client projects, I think this is a far step. Yes, please.
So how much of what you showed us is 1x internet proprietary or not yet contributed, and how much of it is stuff that we would find?
So the question was like what exactly was available and what is still proprietary, yeah? So I had here this one, which is, here it was, yeah? So including the chat, it just has 2 more modules installed that are publicly available, and it's called AI Chat. And I think that's it. Yeah, and we also have like another helper module, which is called AI Chat Helper, and that's because the current released chat version does not contain, for example, full width functionality, does not contain overlay functionality, and it returns the response in a hard-coded in a hard-coded way, yeah. And in order to just leverage deep chat, you just need to like provide different responses. For example, use overlay yes or no, or maybe use a format as a response format as HTML or as JSON or whatever, or Markdown or so. Yeah. So we did some tweaking there, and these are all as patches. Yeah. So we work closely together with the AI people. So this will probably land at some point, and yeah, and especially this with a full width. There was just an issue opened yesterday for making the chat full width, which we've just built. So we're probably going to contribute this soon. Yes.
How do you think about the different kind of level of end users being technically savvy versus not, and that some of them might be comfortable with AI, and some of them might still want that situation? So how do you, should everything sort of shift toward the, tech savvy people who understand AI versus the opposite?
So the question was about my opinion on like the acceptance of AI for end users. Question back: are you thinking about developers, content editors, or like visitors of websites?
Visitors to the website.
It's a very good question. Hard to answer. I think no data exists. But my mother asked me like if I could buy her a book. My mother is Danish, yeah. So like some book about Homer's Odyssey in Danish and in old language, and she asked her older brother, who's 85 years old, like where she could get that book. He lives in Denmark, yeah. And he sent her back a screenshot of ChatGPT where he had asked that question. So I think if 85-year-old people use ChatGPT for like stuff like that, I think acceptance is very high.
And I think it's not an age thing. It seems like it's how technically savvy versus not.
It's my uncle, yeah. He's not very tech savvy. And the other example would be our children, yeah. They are 13 and 15. I mean, they just ask. Yeah, like that's just normal. I think this is going to be the new normal. I think the question, it's a very legitimate question because like it's changing so fast, and like since we're in the business, we've seen it all. But I think it's not going to be a question anymore very soon, in my opinion.
I was hoping you'd speak a little more to hyper-personalization and privacy. Like I can see a whole series of chain of interactions where just there's a photography blackberry prompt and then a response. But if you're going to start to link those together, you start to have tracking issues, and that different jurisdictions has all sorts of implications. And just what your thoughts are in terms of like, is there a way to do that without running a conflict of privacy, or at least getting into like, well, now we need to like.
Yes. So the question was about data privacy, because of course, if there's interaction between website visitors and a conversational interface, you just have tracking what the person really wanted at that point in time, and that could be stored somewhere. It's a very good question. We are thinking about this. There's 2 ways of how this works at the moment. Currently, like the chatbot stores because the whole conversation is always sent, right? So you ask a question, you get then some data is loaded, and then an answer is produced, and then you ask a follow-up question, and then all of the previous ones are sent along with it to compute the next answer, right? So the question is, where do you store this? So by default, it's stored in the session on the server. So session storage is being used, and that's of course something that could conflict with data privacy laws. So we have also worked on something that we store this in local storage in the browser. Yeah, that we just send it, keep it there and send it along over the wire, so to speak, to the server, and then pass it along to keep no trace on the server. I mean, the full question and answers is of course still there, but at least it's not stored in our system. So that would be one way to get around it. It also has the benefit, I mean, if you have for visitors, you don't want to use session storage because then you open sessions for users, and then you have to do session management. Yeah, so it's better to have this locally, so that would be a nice benefit. That's also compliant. Yes?
So for the chat interface, and if you're going to use a RAG system,
Yeah.
RAG model, how would you guys handle the vector database? Because most institutions sometimes have one database, maybe a MySQL database, but you won't be able to use MySQL because the vector.
Yeah.
How would you?
So the question is, if you use a vector database for a RAG application, like what do you use? And because what's usually available is MySQL or MariaDB or something like this, it doesn't support vectors yet. So there's actually a feature that's coming out. It's scheduled for some time this year that you have vector support in MariaDB. Yeah, we call it MariaDB. Yeah, and so then you could use the same database that you have for your other Drupal data. For the time being, we use an open source product called Milvus. Yeah, and it works really nice. Most of the people that I talk to use it too. And if you want to set something like a RAG system up, a vector database, you would need to run a Milvus instance somewhere. You can rent it too, I think, and store your data there.
I've got a few questions, so I'll see if I can tie them together maybe. So the RAG system, are there any modules so far, or have you been developing any systems where there is a mix of user personalization, bringing in the questions, the answers that the user generated, and feeding that back into RAG for them? Are there modules, and have you worked on that?
So the question is, if you use a RAG system and you just have questions and answers and follow-up questions, that maybe could help to produce a better answer in the first place, if there are ways of feeding that back. That's the question, right? So that's the same question. It's actually independent of RAG and vector database search, because it would also apply to regular keyword-based search. Yeah. So and it's I think this is what's referred to as reinforcement learning. Yeah, and it's actually a decoupled process. So you just collect this and you see, okay, I have a pattern that this appears. This search result is clicked more than others, so it should be better or something. Yeah, and that's a secondary task. So it's not an all-in-one thing. So there's no module that just does something like this out of the box. I think it's a larger engineering task. If you now think about large language models, so the models, once they are compiled, they exist and you can't alter them anymore. The only thing you can do is you can do this fine-tuning. And what fine-tuning is, though, is just a layer around the model. Yeah, and you could periodically, have questions and answers and kind of fine-tune the model again, say like, oh, that was the last answer. I mean, there's some engineering task before you would need to find out what was a better answer than something else that's difficult in the first place. But if you had that, like kind of good answers, you could just like fine-tune the model of your choice with this information and should produce better answers.
I guess I'm imagining the answers wouldn't be like the full Q&A, and question response. It would be like asking the AI to summarize what the person got out of what they said and storing that for like a user preference.
But that is, again, that is just context. Yeah, you store this somewhere. So like this person has asked these 10 questions, please read through this before answering the next question that could be related or completely unrelated. Yeah. Yes, please.
Our goal is to eventually get rid of all tools. And if I take my website and I put it through like an agent that is trained on creating correcting content, changing the tone, whatever, make my website sound good. Then you have that, I think your next slide is have a human in the group. Let's say you have an agent
Yes, absolutely. So like that, you could even build that out as workflow. You know, you have like one work. You could even do this with like ECA. You know, like you have one that just takes all pages. You know, loads all content and adapts it all. If you had like workflows installed, it could be, you know, like in a new draft state, and then you could have like another process, you know, that could be built manually or like, you know, with the agent system that's currently being developed. Another one reviewing it and grading it on 1 to 10 if that is sensible. And then the ones that are graded low, you would have to review. So. That is too new. Like, I think we're not there yet. I think like if you want to do that, if you have like large amounts of content that you want to improve, probably you just make yourself like a drush command that just goes over the content and changes it, and then another one that just like reviews it, and then it becomes a human in the loop. I think that would be the fastest way to get there. Of course, that's not the nicest way and not the most, you know, interactive way and extensible way possible, but if you just want to start and see it, that's what you would probably do. In my personal experience, like generated content is never 100%. It just isn't, yeah? So like you can, whatever you do, like you just have to rework it multiple times. And I think like updating like all the content on your website, you would have to review it, except the pages are so unimportant that it's not even worthwhile, and small improvements better than no improvement. Yeah. I haven't seen. So the question was, could you just train an agent as a persona? The answer, and the question was also like, if I had seen that, the answer is no, I have not seen it, but it's definitely possible because that's just information. If you say your persona is you are this and this with this and this background, and that's your problem, and that's your education, and you like this, you don't like that, you hang out here, you don't hang out there. I mean, that's just information that's passed along. That's like, remember here in these graphics that I showed? Here. That's just, where was the other one? You know the one like where you modify the input, you just pass additional data to the input. Yes, there are more. Yes, please.
So you talked about how eventually, someone's going to come to your website, they just want to type in and get an answer without having to dig through, and I agree with that. What's the beginning step to creating that in your website? If you have a site, you have thousands of articles, you obviously can't pass all of that data to ChatGPT every time, unless you're a billionaire. So what does that look like? What are you doing to kind of create that process where the model knows the data and
Yeah.
asks the question?
Yes. So the question was like, how do you really optimize like the amount of data that's being sent to a large language model to just like save cost and just also just not send stuff that's not important. Let's maybe go back here to the RAG slide that was showing here. You see this illustrated in the picture. Yeah. So look, in the vector database, there are all these documents in here, 9 documents in the example, and now the question is asked, and only 2 documents are fetched, the 2 relevant ones, and only these 2 are sent along. So if you build these kind of systems, there's a lot of trial and error, because it could be that 2 documents is perfect, could be 10 documents is perfect, could be that 10 documents adds too much noise to it, and then when the follow-up question comes, then immediately it becomes difficult. Should I now load additional documents on the follow-up, or are the original documents good enough? Yeah, so it gets tricky over time. On the bright side, there are so many models competing, yeah, that the token prices, they're just going down. So it's not so much of an issue. I think 1 year ago, like everybody always want to know, like, oh, what does it cost, and will I be bankrupt when I just install this? Yeah, so I think that's not so much a question anymore. But of course, you just need, just like for hosting, you just need to be aware of bots and bad actors and so forth. Yeah, for sure. But I think that's how you would go at it. Yes, please. Yeah, so the question is, what are the steps that you need to take if you have a lot of content and you want to make that available? You just want to do optimization for AIs. You want to do like, I think it's called, GEO, yeah, because I just learned that term here, and when I put it on the top slide of what we do, because we now do GEO as well. Look, where was it? Where was it? Didn't I say that here? Look, we do GEO. Yeah, that's exactly what we do. The thing is, it's the same as SEO, because if you pay close attention to like what Lighthouse, for example, or any on-page evaluation tool says, it says, look, text is too long, doesn't follow semantic structure, you know, it seems to be not on point on a topic, yeah, and it doesn't have structured data to it, yeah, and I don't know what the focus keyword really is. Yeah, I can't determine any topic authority on this one. Yeah, that's the same. Yeah, so if you make good technical SEO, and you just have that information available in a good form and optimized DOM structure, then it's also good for AI. So I think here there's some good overlap. Yeah. What I did read is that you should put on your website like a data privacy policy or data policy or something saying, yes, please models index this page and rank me high. So I think that's what they say you should do. I don't know if that has any effect. And then, of course, like if you have bot management on your website, you just need to make sure that these bots actually can harvest. But there's another aspect to this. Maybe website relaunches are not necessary anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because like, think of it, like we used to like relaunch our websites all the time and migrate the data from one to the other. If everything's just generated, maybe you just need to polish the data and then you just work on the presentation layer. Yeah? Yes, please.
How does any of this work, this research concept apply back to the community? Are you doing code sprints? Are you interacting with other Drupal firms?
Yeah. So the question is around like all the stuff that we do, how we contribute back, and how we organize like our contribution. So everything we do, not just here, if we can contribute, we contribute it. We participate and maintain a bunch of modules. And here we work closely with the AI module maintainers and yeah, and then just align. Sometimes there's code sprints. Like last we were big time involved in Drupal CMS, so there we did a lot. And yeah, but it's more it's mostly in the issue queue, and of course we've been there a long time, and our main developers for a long time too. So people know each other, so that's how we do it. Yes, please.
Are you seeing any applications in user experience testing for this development?
Yeah, I think it's too new. Yeah. I'm really interested to learn this because like in my mind, sorry, the question was if there was any user experience tests around this, and I said there wasn't because I think it's too new, but I'd be highly interested because we all use it all the time and we build beautiful complicated websites all the time, and that's a clash. Yeah, so there will be some common ground, something new will come, and like I'm really interested to see what happens. One last, and then yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm clicking around here. It's on the very last slide. Come on. Wait, I can do this faster. Yeah, exactly. So it is here. I use the link shortener. It's onexinter.net. And then DrupalCon Atlanta 25, DCA 25. You're welcome. Thank you. This was very much fun.